Hey guys. Alright, so I had some questions on some of your homeworks, alright? And I know right now doing this class online seems really hard, but really just watch the videos, take notes, do not cheat, because I know there's 9 of you that are doing it right now that I see in math lab. I will bust you on your tests, so don't do it. Just do what you can. You have the option to get 100 on every single one of your homeworks, so there's no reason that you're not doing that. Okay, so don't stop at 60%. Work and get that 100%. You can ask me for help. I'll send you a response. You have my phone number. Okay, so for the people that ask for help, they're helping the entire class right now, and I hope it helps you too. So when you're solving, so this is chapter 6.5. I'm going to do some from each section. All right. So in chapter 6.5, it's solving rational equations. That's equations with fractions in it. All right, so we're going to do number 1. Well, actually, I numbered them wrong. It's 1, 12, 23, and 24. 12, 23, and 24. Okay, so use this. So what you do, there's a trick. You multiply everything by the common denominator, okay? That eliminates all the fractions. That makes these problems a lot easier, okay? So our common denominator, 3 goes into 9, but 6 does not go into 9. So what's the common denominator for 6 and 9? Well, 6 and 9 will both go into 36. Okay, so if we multiply everything by 36, we'll get an easier equation to deal with, okay? 36, remember you divide the bottom and multiply the top, and we're distributing that to everything. All 3 pieces. So 36 divided by 3 is 12 times x equals 36 divided by 9 is 4 times 8x. So notice the top didn't change. I'm showing you that work. 36 divided by 9 is 4 times 8x. Plus 36 divided by 6 is 6 times x. So the thing about this problem is when we combine all our x's, we get 12x equals 32x plus 6x. We can minus the 12x over to this side. To get all our x's together, we get 0 equals 32 plus 6 is 38, minus 12 is 26. Then we have our x. If we divide, so x equals 0 divided by 26. X equals 0. Okay? Number 12 in your homework. It's the same problem. They just make it a lot harder by putting equations down into the bottom of these instead of just regular numbers. Now, the nice thing about these problems is this thing factors, right? Remember, to factor this, all you do is you take the square root. You have a calculator of 256. Well, square root of 256 happens to be 16. So we get x plus 16 and x minus 16. So what we want to do here, the trick is, get all your denominators to be the same. Well, right now, we have x minus 16 is one denominator. X minus 16, x plus 16 is this denominator. So if we multiply this one by x plus 16, now we have a common denominator for these two. We're going to do the same thing over here, but it's x plus 16, so we need x minus 16. Once you have all these denominators to be the same, get rid of them. We don't need to deal with them anymore. You just need to make sure your answer works in the end. So you have to check your answer. So we have, just distribute this. We have 4 times x. 4 times 16 is 64. Minus 5. Notice we didn't have to multiply that one by anything. Well, it's because it was already the common denominator. It already had it. Equals 3 times x. And 3 times 16 is negative 48. We want all our x's on one side, so let's go ahead and move the 3x over here, and we'll add like terms. So we get 4x minus 3x is 1x, plus 64 minus 5 is 59, equals negative 48, and then subtract 59. Then we get our answer there. So x equals negative 48 minus 59. What is that? I believe it's negative 107. All right. So that's how you solve any of these equations. There might be a lot of problems there, but it's for your practice, okay? Another one. Now this one does not have any numbers in it at all, but it's asking you, well, it kind of does, it's got the 2. But it's asking you to solve for a letter, H, with all these other letters in it. So there's rules we can't break. So the first thing we do is we're going to move the 2 here. We times 2 on both sides. So we have 2s equals L times A plus H. Notice I didn't distribute. Distributing would actually make this harder, so don't do that. If we're solving for H, we're going to want to move the L here by dividing it. So we divide by L on both sides. And we get our next step. We have 2s over L equals A plus H. We're almost done, because H is almost by itself now. All we have to do is move the A. So we minus A, and that's all we can really do. We get 2s over L minus A equals H. Should have one just like that on your homework. And then 24 and 25 are word problems. And they're the same type of problem. So this is the same as the next one. If Sally can paint a room in 3 hours, and Steve can paint a room in 7 hours, how long will it take them to paint the room together? Okay, so what we do is we set up kind of this rooms per hour equation. Okay? And we make each piece. We have Sally, how many rooms can she do in 1 hour? Or, you know, she can do 1 room in 3 hours, right? Plus, Steve can do 1 room in 7 hours. Equals, well, how long will it take them to do that together? There's our equation. We're going to solve it the same way we did here, but our common denominator, we're going to build the same way we did in number 12 here, okay? 3 and 7, the common denominator is 21. So we times 7 and times 3. Do it to the bottom, got to do it to the top. That doesn't give us a common denominator yet though, because we're missing this piece here. Because if this has an x in it, these two need an x in it. So we could say, oh, this is going to be 7x, 3x, 3x, 7x. We're getting closer, because right now, these are 21x. Well, we don't have 21 here, so we multiply this by 21. Now we have a common denominator. They're all the same. Okay, so you kind of mix and match until you get that common denominator. If we cancel out all the bottoms, we get 7x plus 3x equals 21. Divide. Well, actually, add like terms, that's 10x equals 21, and then divide. So we get x equals 21 over 10. That's a possible answer. It depends on if they want it in minutes or hours. Maybe they want a decimal form. If so, it's 2.1. So it just depends on what they want. If they want minutes, times that decimal by 60. So 0.1 is equal to 6 minutes. So that's 2 hours and 6 minutes. Okay, continuing on. So 7.1, 7.2, well, most of 7 deals with radicals. Alright, so radicals are like square roots and cube roots. One formula that I do want you guys to know is when you have a fraction exponent, say it's a over b, you can convert that to one of these things. So that's what a fraction exponent means. It means you have some kind of radical, okay? The top is the exponent, and the bottom is the root. So we have, say, the bth root of x to the a power. That's more in 7.2. So know this. Alright. You should know how to take regular square roots. What it means. The square root of 81 means what times what that's the same number as 81. Well, that's just 9. Okay? Now, it gets a little different when we have a letter in there. Okay? So what you do is, just like this formula, whatever that exponent is, if you divide it by the kind of root, you get what you're supposed to have outside. So one thing you need to know is when there's no number up here, there's like an imaginary 2. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind because you want two things that multiply to equal the inside. So x to the 6 divided by 2 is x cubed. The good thing about 7.1 is all of the roots are perfect. Okay, so you're not going to have any, weird problems here. It gets weirder in 7.3. So here we have the cube root of negative 216. So that means what times what is negative 216. So you can try it in your calculator. I am going to email you a formula sheet, so you will have that. So what times what is negative 216? So you try maybe 4. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And keep going. Since it's even, it's going to be an even number. So you can skip 5, go to 6. It is actually negative 6. Because negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6 is negative 216. Now, consider a problem a little bit different than this. So let's say it was a square root. You cannot have the square root or an even root. Odd root, you're allowed to have negative. Even root is imaginary. So it's not real. So you gotta know that. We will be dealing with these later, and it's gonna be imaginary numbers. So number 12 is based right off this. Let's rewrite it like that. So remember, it's exponent divided by the root. Well, 57 divided by 3 is 19. And we're done. Here, if you have two letters, it's the same thing. You just divide them by 4. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So our answer is a to the 8th and b to the 1st, but you don't write that, right? It's just b, not b to the 1st. Here's where it gets a little bit different. Okay, so like I said, when there's nothing up here, there's a little imaginary 2. So that's what we're dividing by. So we have 27 divided by 2. This is where you need to know what a remainder is and where they come from. So 2 goes into 26. It doesn't go into 27, right? 2 goes into 26 13 times with a remainder of 1. So there it is. Okay? Just like here, 32 divided by 4 is 8. We took 8 a's out. Well, that means we can take 13 x's out and leave 1 x in. So we have x to the 13 times square root of x to the 1st. 13 come out and 1 stays in. Whenever you're looking at regular numbers, you want to convert them into radicals, because that's how they make sense to us. All right. So we have negative 8 to the 1/3 power. Well, that really means the cube root, exponent divided by the root, of negative 8. You don't need the 1 because it's 1. What times what is negative 8? Well, negative 2 is the answer to that. Same thing here. Except it's 1/2. So our exponent is 1 and our root is 2. But remember, you don't write it up there when it's 2. There's an imaginary 2 up there when it's not there. Alright? So what's the square root of 25? 5, right? These are a little weird, but they go back to chapter 5. Chapter 5, we learned exponent rules. So the rule when we're dividing is subtract. Y to the 1/3 minus 1/6. While you're subtracting fractions, that means you need a common denominator, right? A common denominator of 6. So we times this one by 2, right? So it becomes 2 over 6 minus 1 over 6. And we get our answer. X to the 7 times x to the 1/2 means plus. Remember, when you're multiplying, you add the exponents. So we have x to the 7 over 1 plus 1 over 2. If we times that by 2, we get x to the 14 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is x to the 15 over 2. Another way to write that, if we wanted to write it in this form, would be the square root of x to the 15th power. So that's another answer they get out. I don't know how they want it. They probably want it like that, just to be weird. But that would be a fine answer for me. If we were going to do that here, we could say, okay, exponent is 1, root is 6. It would look like that. So those would be answers for number 14. Okay, so in chapter 7.3, these were the homework problems that you guys gave me. So what you want to do, say for number 3 on your homework, if you have two things in a radical, what you're allowed to do is break it up into two radicals. Square root of 3, you can't do anything with. That stays. Square root of 49, though, is 7. That's it. Easy enough, right? Here, a little bit harder. We have square root of 13x squared. Can't do anything with the 13, but you can take out the x squared because the square root of x squared is just x. The bottom of this is perfect. So we have like I said, we're just dividing the exponent divided by the root. Well, our exponent's just 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. X comes out. The 13 stays in. What's the square root of 9? 3, right? What times what is y squared? Y. So that's the answer for that one. This is a little bit different now, okay? So when you have they're telling you to take the square root. If you type this into the calculator, you're just going to get a decimal. So you can't do anything with that. So what you can do is break it up. Like if we were to list out perfect squares, two squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 36, so on and so forth. What you do is you break that number up into something that goes into it from that list, because we're dealing with the square root. This is going to be different. But for now, we're just dealing with the regular square root. So you deal with those numbers. So we could say, oh, this is 4 times 6. What is the square root of 4? That can come out. So we get 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 6 we can't deal with, so we leave it. So these are the same thing, that's just simplified. Okay, so now we have a cube root. So for cube roots, two cubed is 8, 3 cubed is 27, 4 cubed is 64, so on and so forth. You're dealing with those numbers, so you have to split this up. Well, this is 27 times 10. This is perfect. So we can take that out. The cube root of 27 is 3, right? But we can't do anything with the 10, so that will stay in. Moving on to a little bit harder problems. Now we're mixing all this stuff together, okay? So the square root of 64, that's perfect, that's 8. But we have a letter that you might not know what to do with. Remember, the root is 2. So 5 divided by 2 is 2 goes into 4 2 times, and into 5 there's 1 left over. So we could take 2 x's out, 1 x will stay in. The 64 comes out completely. That becomes 8. So we get 8, because 64, square root of 64 is 8. Square root, actually, nope. 2 x's come out. 5 divided by 2 is 2. Remainder, 1. So we get 8x squared square root of x. Same thing here. 7 divided by 3 is 2, remainder 1. So it's kind of similar to what we just had there. We could take 2 y's out, because 7 divided by 3 is 2, remainder 1. Cube root of y to the first power. This one's a little bit harder. So 63 is not perfect. So the first thing we want to do is split that up. It's a square root into perfect squares. So you got to think of, okay, what's the highest number here that goes into 63? And the answer is 9. Okay? Because 9 goes into 63 7 times. That's 9 times 7. So you have to split it up into one being a perfect square and one not. So we take that out. That's perfect. That'll come out. For a and b, set up the fractions that I have there, okay? Exponent divided by the root is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 9 divided by 2. 2 goes into 9 4 times with a remainder of 1. That negative's out there. All you do is put that in your answer. It doesn't really do anything. The answer is negative square root of 9 is 3. 3 a's come out, so a cubed. 4 b's come out, b4. And then we have our remainders. The 7 stays in, and 1b stays in. There's no remainder here. So 7b. If you guys need help, you have to ask for it. And I won't be making these videos if you guys don't ask for help. So, hope you're all feeling well and nobody's sick. Have a good day.